Hello, welcome. So just to get started, this is our Learn and Share session, and I'm delighted that we've got Rachel from the Royal College of Physicians talking today. A great story that I'm really keen that we share with you today. So thanks for joining. We will get started. We've got a lot to get through. And any questions, any comments, please do pop them into the chat for us. So just in terms of what's to come then, so I'm going to do a little bit of a welcome and just some introductions. I look after the HE sector here at People Insight for those people who don't know, so I'll just walk us through the welcome section. I'll then move on to pass to Rachel from the RCP to tell us about their listening journey and how they've been embedding and creating a culture of listening and responding to staff feedback. And Kate, our head of consultancy here at People Insight, is also going to share some of the coaching and information on the one-to-one that we did with Rachel for RCP. We're then really excited to share some updates that we see. We're in a really privileged position to see where these sector trends, what's happening, news. So we've got a few things that we'd love to share with you, and then we're looking to close just before 12:30 today for lunch. So just in terms of a little bit of housekeeping then, we will be recording the webinar. So if you did want to take any notes, don't worry, you will get the recording we'll send through. If you do have any comments, thoughts, please do send them over to us, pop them in the chat, or you can email us after. Rachel's kindly going to give her email details as well. And we are here to help. We're here to support the sector. So anything in particular, do reach out to us. So just to introduce People Insight to anyone who doesn't know us, we support the university sector to listen, respond and understand the employee voice, looking at turning that employee feedback into meaningful action. So we use our AI Agile People Insight platform for every type of employee survey, and we're seeing a huge amount more in terms of surveys being put through the platform, and we're also seeing more and more 360s being done now as well from the university sector. And we have our amazing people consultancy team, so obviously Kate heads up the team here today to really help support drive action, build teams' capacity to listen and to respond effectively. We are really privileged to be able to work with so many universities across the UK and globally as well. It's great that we're able to support many of our universities through global campuses where we survey international employees too. And we work with a range of different universities, small to large. Lots of the universities we're working with are on a longer term listening programme, where we're working together for many years to support, embed and grow the listening culture. So it's not just a one-off annual survey, it's much more around continuous listening and support. We heard in our July event, our face-to-face July event from the University of Southampton, I think a few people hopefully on the line today, about their listening programme and how they've been embedding listening and growing their programme of listening using the People Insight platform to not only do their main survey, their main pulse surveys, but also to expand to other surveys, to integrate with their HR systems and to really get managers using the action planning area so we can see them local changes happening. So lots of different universities that we work with, all at different stages. It does mean we have lots of universities where we have lots of great benchmarking available. So at the overall HE level, but also the more granular benchmarking as well. And we're constantly updating the benchmarks. So the next wish list for me for the benchmark is a Welsh benchmark, for example. So I have lots of requests and thoughts on it. So we're always evolving the benchmark to look at different needs that are coming through. So if there is any request, do let me know. And obviously as well, it's prudent for me to say at this time of year, autumn is a very busy time in the sector for staff listening. Many of you on the line will be in preparation for your survey going live very soon. And as a rough tally, we've got just under 20 universities who will be surveying this autumn term with their engagement survey, which is great news because it means obviously the benchmarks are constantly updated as soon as we get that data coming through. And while surveying is our bread and butter, we are constantly listening and evolving to support our HE clients and the wider staff listening. So even over the last couple of months, we've been supporting with lots of different activities, including in focus groups, one-to-ones, the 360s, as I mentioned as well. So lots of different services that we're providing, as well as the surveys themselves and the platform. And it's a delight to have such a strong and growing HE community. We have lots of case studies. We're always trying to share best practice. And I'm sure many of you on the line, we've been asking for, can we share your story? Can we share how you've done a certain initiative or got such a response rate, for example? So case studies are really important to us to be able to demonstrate the amazing work going on across the sector. We also have obviously a great set of data across the sector. So looking at sector specific insights, trends that are happening. We work with UHR. We're going to an event on Thursday at Manchester Met, which is great. And we were delighted to be able to run our first face-to-face event in July in London with a great turnout. You can see there on the picture, lots of people doing some of our sessions and listening to Southampton and Imperial talk about their journey. So great to have that. And the community is growing. So Suzanne, we'll talk about that later on in the session too. And it's really important for us to recognise good practice where we see it. We're in such a privileged position to be able to see the data from the top view and to see where we've got good practice from the data and the evidence coming through. And we've got 2 specific awards in the HE sector. We've got our Outstanding Workplace Award, so where there's high engagement and also where there's a high response rate. And to say this year alone, we have had 3 universities receive this award, which is fantastic news to show the great work that's going on across the sector, despite a lot of challenges that are going on at the moment. And we've recently, last year, we started our Inspire HE ranking, which is a great initiative to be able to look at an annual basis at where different universities sit in terms of their employee experience data that's come through. We can then see, are we in the top quartile, upper middle or lower quartile? It's individual to each university, so we would not divulge any information to anyone else. It's your information to be told, and we'd share it with you alone. But it does mean it gives you a sense of how you're doing. Which can be great because it can actually mean despite everything that's going on, we're doing pretty well here. And we can also give some tips and hints to help and where you might want to focus if you did want to sort of move up the ranking next year. So we're taking the data from 2025 and we'll be releasing the ranking to individual universities early 2026 for the next round. So we had lots of universities last year who were in the top quartile who wanted to share their news, and rightly so, because it's an amazing accolade to get. So we had Manchester Metropolitan University, who are one of our case studies and who were top scoring last year on the Inspire ranking, and other universities in that top quartile too, including Glasgow, Aberdeen, Southampton, Imperial, Loughborough. I'm very sorry if I've missed anyone. That's but lots of universities in that top quartile, just to prove the amazing work that is going on across the sector, despite, as I said, lots of challenges as well. So 2 awards for that recognition that we have and very continue. And today I'm really thrilled to be joined by Rachel from the Royal College of Physicians. So an organisation that's not only embraced employee voice, but embedded it in the heart of the culture, from launching the brand Participate to driving real change through action planning and leadership engagement. The journey with People Insight is a kind of masterclass in a way in how to listen, act and grow. So very pleased that Rachel's here today to be able to share what you've done, what you've learned, and also kind of what's next in a way. So I'm not going to take too much away from you, Rachel, because I want you to share this amazing story of where you've come from and what's happened and where you're going. So I'm going to hand over to Rachel.
Lovely. Thank you, Jane. And yeah, great to meet you all this morning. Thanks for inviting me. So I'm Rachel James. I'm Head of People Experience at the RCP, the Royal College of Physicians. Before we look at the RCP's engagement journey, I thought I'd introduce myself in a bit more detail and say a little bit about the RCP so you know the context in which we're working. So my passion is improving culture in the not-for-profit sector. I've been working in the sector for over 20 years in central and local government and health and education charities. Almost 6 years ago to the day, actually, I joined the RCP, where my remit includes four main areas: engagement and improving culture, which is where the survey fits in and the bit you'll probably be most interested in, and three other areas which feed into that. So skills and learning, diversity, inclusion, belonging, and employee voice, and a final related area of well-being, because if we're not valued for our unique contribution, that impacts on our well-being and performance. And being a health organisation, well-being is particularly important to us. So a little bit about the RCP. So we have almost 40,000 members globally, and we support doctors in over 30 different medical specialties, largely in hospitals, but in the communities too. We were established over 500 years ago to regulate medicine and to make sure that the medicine that people were getting was actually helping them and not harming them, which is ultimately a good thing. But it did make medicine slightly elitist, as you had to pass expensive exams and be fluent in Latin and ancient Greek. So the rest of my presentation is going to be in ancient Greek. No, not really. I'm pleased to say that we have evolved our attitudes quite a lot since then. But improved health and healthcare remains our guiding principle and underpins all of our work. And our four main areas are educating, influencing, improving, and supporting our members. So in terms of education, we run exams for doctors at different stages of their career. We run continuing professional development courses. And we use evidence collected from our members to try to influence government policy to improve health and patient experience. So you may have seen a few months ago in the news around corridor care, and that was our campaign. And we are currently campaigning around workforce, so trying to equate the level of care with the number of doctors needed. We also work with doctors and patients to develop guidelines to improve patient care, and we also assess and accredit services in hospitals. So that's the improvement element. And continuous improvement is an expectation built into everything that we do, which is why we wanted to do the survey. We have quite a complex structure. We have an executive leadership team led by our Chief Executive Officer, and then we also have kind of enmeshed into that our clinical leadership team. And some of those roles, they're all taken by doctors, these roles, and some of them are elected, like our president, and some are appointed to, like our treasurer or registrar. And they usually come in for a period of 3 or 4 years, and they often have quite a clear idea about what they want to achieve during that time, and that contributes to our culture and something that we wanted to explore during the survey as well. You'll notice on the slide there are two photos. These are of our two headquarters. On the left there you have our it's quite a famous brutalist building in London, designed by Dennis Lasdon. And on the right there you have the Spine, which is like the Spotty building in Liverpool. And that's actually, the design there is it's meant to replicate skin cells, but it's called affectionately, locally, it's called the giraffe, which is quite cute. But it's an amazing building, and the idea it's got the WELL Platinum standard, which is a sustainability and health standard for buildings. Yeah, it's one of the most healthy buildings in the UK, and there's wood and plants everywhere, and the idea is that you leave healthier than when you went in. And so actually contrasting that to our grade 1 listed building where we can't have double glazing, and people get very cold in the winter, and they definitely told us about that in the survey. So now on to the survey. So you'll notice here this the image that I've chosen. I'll talk more about stakeholder engagement shortly, but you'll notice the name Participate and the RCP highlighted there. So I'm going to talk about stakeholder engagement. I'm going to talk about our comms plan, the promotion we did up to the point of launch, and during while the survey was live, our results, our comms plan post closing the survey, sharing our results, the actions we've taken so far, the successes, and then some of the challenges and the lessons learned. Okay, so in terms of stakeholder engagement, so this is something we did put a lot of effort in. We invested a lot of time and effort in engaging our stakeholders, so right from the beginning. Even just in terms of choosing the provider, so we whittled it down to like a couple of providers, if I'm allowed to say that on a People Insights presentation. But there were a couple of really strong contenders, and then we got our key stakeholders involved. So as well as our leadership team, we had representatives from our employee forum. We're not unionised, so we have an employee forum. We had representatives from our employee forum. We also had representatives from different teams that would need to kind of be involved in this. So information governance, internal communication, and of course our people and culture team members as well. And they were all involved in helping kind of design the criteria by which we were going to assess different providers, and then the final decision. They're also involved in helping shape the questionnaire. So it was, and we used a Pearl model of questions, which Jane may touch on later. But we used the kind of that model of questions, and the questions were great. We did want to adapt them, and it was really great to have that flexibility to be able to adapt them. For example, we wanted to explore the different dynamics between the executive leadership team and our clinical leadership team. And one of our values is taking care. So we also wanted to add a question around the effectiveness of managers to take action around issues that might impact on well-being and performance. Having said that, if we had included all the questions that we wanted to include, and our stakeholders wanted to include, we would have ended up with 100 questions, and it would have taken 2 hours to complete, and no one would have completed it. So it was really good to have people inside there to kind of go, oh well, actually you might want to kind of whittle that down a little bit. And also one of the reasons we chose People Insight, and Jane was talking about it earlier, was because of the really impressive benchmarking data that they have for our sector. And actually, if you change the questions too much, sometimes that would affect, whether you can benchmark or not. So we sometimes had to make a decision, actually, how much do we want to change this? Is it, we absolutely have to have this question in, or can we kind of live with it how it is? So so there was quite a bit of toing and froing, and also kind of explaining if we couldn't include someone's question or not in the format exactly as they wanted it. But I do think that was actually quite an investment that time. So we also asked our stakeholders, what questions do you have? Because and that helped us to shape the frequently asked questions document, because we knew that the questions our stakeholders would ask would be, just asking the questions that everybody would want to know the answers to. So although again, People Insight have a great kind of starting point of frequently asked questions, so a lot of the questions were answered there anyway. Our comms plan. So we have all staff meetings every quarter. So we're talking about 2024 now. So if we go back to April 2024, we had an all staff meeting, and we just kind of told people it was coming, warm them up, just sort of said, explained why we were running a survey, why now. And we showed them a little bit about, how it would look, just the landing page, because we hadn't actually designed the rest of it at that point. But, just so they could get a bit of a feel for it. We also went along to our senior managers to engage with them, and kind of so that they knew to plan operationally for the time that people would need to complete this, and that they could encourage people to complete that. We mentioned earlier the naming of our survey, and we actually ran a competition for this and had lots of entries, and we again included our stakeholders in the judging panel. So we had our diversity, inclusion and belonging reps, our women's network chairs, employee forum reps and internal comms, all involved in helping to make that decision, which came out with that, which will identify the participate with the RCP highlighted. That was the winning entry, and it was pretty good, wasn't it? I was quite impressed with that. It definitely wasn't my idea. We found a charity that aligned with our charitable purpose because they plant trees in and create green spaces around NHS hospitals. So we said for every survey we have completed, then we'll donate £1 to this charity. So that was kind of helping to incentivise it and raise the profile of it as well. Our CEO wrote an individual email to all employees asking them to, kind of explaining why he thought it was important that they shared their views with us, what he hoped we would do with the results, to kind of incentivise that. And people did really appreciate that personal touch. We developed an FAQs page. I've already kind of mentioned that, but that was part of our comms plan, and we kind of launched that. And so if you think kind of like following launch, so while the survey was live, on our intranet, we had our completion rate and the countdown to the closing date. We enlisted the help of our stakeholders, which is why it was useful to involve them right from the beginning, because they became our ambassadors and they were brought into the process. And they blogged for us and made videos for us. So, and that's quite compelling, hearing, people hearing their diversity, inclusion, belonging rep or their employee forum rep talking to them about why it was important to complete this. And then we also had a senior managers meeting partway through, and that was a chance to kind of share, okay, this is the picture across the organisation in terms of completion, and different directorates completion levels, but a healthy competition. So that kind of helped as well. Yeah, and then we move on to our results. So we were really pleased with the 85% response rate. We were just really chuffed with that, actually. We were just really pleased. The 47%, the belief in action. So that's, people believe you're going to do something as a result of them sharing this feedback. I thought initially 47% was quite low, but I'm a bit of an optimist. Apparently it's quite good. And then we have our 77% engagement survey, which is just above the higher education sector norm and in line with the all sector norm. And these are our kind of key strength areas, really. So these included sort of being invested in the future of the RCP. People feel quite connected to our overall purpose, and they feel they can make a contribution. Well-being and work-life balance was also something that came through quite strongly. And kind of probably the most significant area was around our management support. People felt they were being treated with respect. They are encouraged to contribute ideas. They receive feedback, and that their managers would be quick to respond to issues that might impact on their well-being and performance, which is one of the questions that we added. So here are some quotes that kind of reflect some of these things, and you're going to get the slide deck afterwards, so I'm going to leave you to peruse some of these quotes at your leisure. So the key focus areas, and it was really great to have Kate kind of, because at the end you're like swimming in data. So it was really great to kind of have Kate come in and go, right, I've looked at it all and these are the things you need to focus on. And then kind of having that kind of guidance in a kind of sort of freed us up really to go, okay, let's dive into these areas. So our 3 areas identified were communication, leadership and purpose. So sort of diving down into the data around communication, we found actually communication within teams and between managers and their staff was pretty good, but it was what was less less helpful or less developed, or was actually the inter-team communication. So that's one of our focus areas. Again, we deep dived into the leadership results, and actually our clinical leadership results were on the low side, but our executive leadership scores were reasonably okay. So actually, it's actually the focus for us is on our clinical leadership team. and around purpose. So you remember I mentioned just earlier that actually people's connection with overall purpose, with that health and improving health and healthcare, people get that, they're motivated by it, that and they kind of understand how their work fits into that. But what was missing is actually people's understanding about how everybody else's work fits into that. So we've interpreted that as a personal connection with RCP's progress. So the ones I'm going to take, kind of when I talk about the actions, I'm going to focus mainly on cross-college collaboration and personal connection with progress. And the reason I'm not going to talk about clinical leadership so much is because we were already aware, as the survey was kind of running and just as it closed, we were kind of aware that this was a challenge for us. And we invited the King's Fund in to come and do a review for us. They have generated a report with recommendations. And so that's work that's already kind of in train. So that's why I'll be focusing when I talk about the actions on the other two areas. And now we come to sharing the results. So we started, the very sort of first thing we did actually was just kind of share very, very top level results at our all staff meeting in the summer. And then we had a presentation to our exec directors, and this was followed by one-to-ones. And now I'm going to bring in Kate to talk a little bit about that process, because Kate was brilliant, provided brilliant support to us at that point.
Thanks, Rachel. It was great to work with you on this project. The whole team at People Insight really appreciated the opportunity, and I think we built a really good collaborative partnership. But yeah, I got very involved post-survey in terms of supporting you to analyse the results. And overall, the results were very strong. So it was sort of quite easy to come up with the sort of areas that required focus, because there were some really good results, as you've already shared within this presentation. But we did go quite deep in terms of that initial presentation to the exec directors, in terms of sharing quite a lot of the detail across teams, deep diving the comments, and looking at some of the demographic information, because I think it was important at that level to share the depth of findings so that team were very clear. And I think what you probably did is took a subset of that presentation to present onwards. But I think the other thing that came through when we looked at the data was that there were differences between different parts of the organisation, that different directorates were in quite a different situation. So what we did was had one-to-one sessions with each of your executive directors, and I found that that was really helpful. Firstly, your executive team were really up for this. It was a real sort of positive environment throughout. The results presentation, I felt that everybody responded well to the findings and were very keen, as we often find, to really deeply dive into their areas. But doing that one-to-one was really useful in your case because the contexts were quite different. So I did separate hourly sessions with each of the directors, really just to look at the results for each team and to have a sort of really deep discussion about those in a safe, confidential environment, and really support them to understand the issues locally for them, but also to really work out next steps in terms of involving their teams and sharing the data onwards. So I think it worked well as a sort of collaborative approach alongside all of the other sharing that you then did, Rachel.
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, no, it definitely made all the difference having those one-to-one sessions with EDs. I definitely would do that again, because they found that it really made the, yes, they were involved in the initial presentation, but to kind of help their data come alive and to kind of, get their sort of clarity on their thinking about, how, what actions to take forward or how to take them forward. And everyone's taken a slightly different approach, which has been great actually, because it's been sort of tailored to the kind of perhaps, the ways of working within that directorate. So yeah, thank you again, Kate, for that. It's really appreciated. So Kate sort of put the EDs on the right path to be able to kind of cascade their results, and then we used a kind of a subset of Kate's presentation with our employee forum, at our senior managers meeting, and at our all staff meeting. So in terms of our all staff meetings, they're in-person events. We do offer it online as well, but generally encouraged to do in person, and we usually run a cake sale or something to try and encourage people in the office on that day. But the arc of it was like kind of April, warming people up, telling people what's coming, July top level results, and then the autumn one was a bigger, like a deeper dive into the results and what the next steps would be. And finally on our list there is the managers conference. So we run every year a managers conference, and this year, last year we made the focus the results. So we shared the results in a bit more detail, and we also got the managers involved in kind of helping us identify potential initiatives that could address the engagement initiative areas that we wanted to focus on. So in terms of actions and next steps, so yeah, the localised plans, which is the kind of the exec directors plans, what's happened with that? Well, one directorate have developed a mentoring scheme, and we've been supporting with training and guidance for that. So that's kind of getting off the ground now. Another directorate has been running some peer shadowings. We supported with guidance with that, but that's kind of already kind of running, and they're ready to do their review of their first round. A second, a third directorate, their feedback was around, it was generally positive, but it was around their kind of immediate environment. Like there were a lot of people based in London, and as I said, there are challenges with that building. So it was like, well, how can we make this better? So they spent just a small amount of money, but on plants and making the environment nicer. I think they got some furniture or throws or something as well to kind of make it nicer for them. And then another directorate whose focus areas really largely reflected the more strategic areas we were looking at. And so perhaps kind of working out what's within their control and what's outside of their control. They decided, well, actually, we're going to focus on celebrating the things we do really well. And they were like top scoring in terms of supporting wellbeing and management support, and engaging and offering opportunities to staff. So they've actually run an away day, sort of really like reinforcing those behaviours as well. So like I say, everyone's taking a slightly different approach, which is great to see, because it means they're owning their data and actions. In terms of the RCP wide initiatives, I mentioned the managers conference. So we made it a theme of the managers conference. We shared the data, we did some kind of workshops around the topics, and then we ran some focus groups around asking them to generate ideas for initiatives to address those two areas of personal connection to RCP's progress and cross-college collaboration. We then distilled that down into polls. We ran a big campaign earlier this year to get people to vote on those, and they've decided kind of which are the top initiatives they think would help. I developed the role of an engagement champion and asked each exec director to nominate 1 or 2 people who can actually help drive this forward. Those engagement champions have written project overviews for each of those initiatives that kind of, I think the top 6 initiatives that we're going with, and we're now kind of pitching those to our exec directors to see which ones they want to kind of go for and are sustainable for us. So coming now to our successes, stakeholder engagement was definitely, yeah, we did that well. I was really pleased with that. There wasn't no one I think there was no one I thought, oh, we should have included them, or what, you know, we definitely tried to include lots of people, and kind of everyone felt like they had their say. We spent time agreeing questions. Like I said, it was quite time consuming. There was quite a lot of toing and froing. I did think at one point, oh, are we ever going to get this survey finalised? But it was definitely worth it, because I also, not only did the people, you know, our stakeholders felt listened to, and they felt like they had helped shape the survey, they also then became our ambassadors and helped promote the survey as well. And it's also good because I think we looked at the questions afterwards, and it's not, we haven't had that sort of chilling moment of like, oh, I wish we'd worded that differently, or we should have asked this. We haven't had that. We feel like we've really got a really robust set of questions that we'll probably just run again, which helps for our own benchmarking as well. So that was good. Our comms strategy prior to the survey, that again, I felt like was really strong, and that probably contributed to our overall kind of high response rate. We weren't so hot on the aftercare, I guess, you know, like we managed it, but we hadn't planned it as well. It was a bit like, because one of the reasons was we kind of really kind of made sure, and we put out all our efforts into making sure we launched before, and the survey closed before the summer holidays, because we didn't want it running into the summer holidays. But then we were like, oh, phew, and now we will get a holiday. But everyone was like, no, we've got the results. What are you doing about it? So, yeah, I don't know if there's ever really a good time. But, you know, it was, I'll come to that when we come to challenges and lessons learned. People Insight have been an absolutely great partner. We absolutely made the right decision. They are just the best collaborative partners, just so quick. And yeah, like I say, even when we were like, we'll have these 100 questions, they weren't like a hard no. They're like, well, you might want to think about. So, you know, they've been great, and just, you know, real, you know, like an enabling and great thought partner. And really quick, actually, whenever we need help, they're always there. So that's a big thank you to them. In terms of quick wins, so like I say, always, I mean, I don't know, you're probably working for much larger organisations, but we were only like 400, but even so, things can take a long time to happen. But we in terms of our quick wins, we've slightly changed our all staff meeting format. So in terms of that, that personal connection with progress. So we've got teams doing sort of quick updates, you know, in the all staff meeting. So that we've changed that slightly. And we also, it didn't come through as one of our kind of 3 key main areas, but as Kate mentioned, some things came through like maybe from a couple of directorates. And one of those things was around career progression. So we adapted our personal development review form to include 2 new elements. One was around a development objective, and the second was around a career development, career aspirations discussion. So that was kind of it was a really quick win. It was quite a minor change, bit of guidance, and, you know, hopefully we made an impact. We'll kind of see, because we're on our next cycle of that now. So those were our main successes. Challenges, lessons learned. So I talked about the timing. So again, I don't know if there's like a perfect time to run a survey. We thought we were being clever by doing it in the summer, you know, because things like, you know, academically, maybe things are a little quieter then. So we thought that's a good time. But then, you know, because, and it was great. People are so engaged. We're like, right, we've got the results. What are you doing about it? But we all went on holiday. So then we came back in the autumn and we had to kind of re-engage and share the results then. So I don't know. I'll be interested to hear your stories and what, yeah, if there's a perfect time. We might review it, right, just do something differently next time, just to see. The training on the database. So Paul was absolutely brilliant at People Insight. So he gave us some training, and just I guess this is just to share my reflections for other people out there. I would get training after you've got your results, because for me it was just a little bit abstract, because I just couldn't see what was going to happen until I actually had data. So yeah, that's for me. I would have that training later. Pace yourself if you haven't done surveys before. I guess this is kind of linked to the next point, really, because things take longer than you can ever imagine, especially if you're trying to do it collaboratively, which, as I say, is it's definitely worth doing it collaboratively, because your stakeholders become your ambassadors, and then, you know, if you can try and get it right first time, you're saving yourself time in the long run. But definitely takes time, and pacing yourself. Like I say, we like really pushed ourselves to try and get it done for the summer, and then we didn't, you know, have much left in the tank. So you might want to pace yourselves differently. And the time again to engage with survey the results and implement actions and maintain that momentum. That's always a challenge, because for some people this is not their top priority. I don't know why, but it isn't. So it's like just trying to find new and different ways to try and keep it on people's radar, and kind of keep it present and keep the progress moving. So yeah, but we're on a journey with it. You know, this was our first survey. We had a great experience, like with People Insight, and you know, we got some really good results and definitely some focus areas. I hope it will be, you know, it's just the start of our journey. We'll survey regularly, we'll build up our data set, and we'll kind of see what the impact of our actions has, you know, on the results, and maybe report back next time. But yeah, that's yeah, we're on a journey, and we're still learning. So I'm happy to learn from all you guys as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been great. It's been great to hear from you. Thank you for sharing your story. I think it's really inspiring for us looking in as well and supporting you to see how, you know, you really embedded that employee voice. You can see how meaningful it is. There's so many initiatives happening involving staff afterwards as well. And hopefully, you know, people on the call today can take something away to just think about, or that they may be able to use, or, you know, think, oh, that's a great idea, and a little takeaway. We have had a couple of questions. So we had some questions that came in before, and we've also had some today as well. So thank you very much. If you've got any now, we can pop them in the chat, and I'll ask Rachel. So in terms of questions, I'm going to go to one from Kate, actually, not our Kate, Kate on chat. So did you have any free text comments, Rachel? And if you did, how did you analyse them? Do you want to give any information on your open text comments?
Yeah, we did. And I know, I think the AI tool is kind of currently being refined. We didn't manage to say at that point it was when we didn't always find that it pulled out the kind of the right words, but we did. We were able to kind of go through those. What was really good about the tool actually did sort of group them into kind of positive and negative. That was that was helpful. So you could kind of okay, I get an overall flavour of these. But the word, I would say the word clouds probably needed a bit more work. But actually the grouping was helpful. And it helped us pull out some choice quotes for further comms later on. So yeah, definitely I would have free text. I think it's. I mean, you perhaps want to limit the characters, or so you don't get huge essays. But but I think it is nice for people to have that opportunity.
Yeah. So we had the comment AI on the comments, so which categorised them by sentiments: positive, neutral, negative, and mixed, and put them into themes as well. So I know when we're looking at different themes. We do have like generative AI called Prism as well looking at it. So that's something to explore further when there's lots of open comments. So, thousands of open comments too. Another question, Rachel, from Melissa. I wanted to ask how the RCP helped engage their staff and what messaging did you use to encourage participation? So obviously you got your amazing 85% participation, and anything that you shared on why staff should engage with the survey. So obviously all that pre-survey comms, was there anything in particular nuggets on what you were saying on why staff should take part?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, I think it was partly because of the different channels we used. So we had a lot on our intranet site, and then we're also aware that not everybody was kind of checking the intranet. So that's why we had the email from the CEO. I actually went out, we have gardeners, and I actually went out into the garden to talk to the gardeners because I know they're not always on top of their emails and kind of the intranet. So we was, first of all, I think just reaching out and making sure that information was available on different channels, like our all staff meeting as well. So you're trying to get people in different ways. And then also that it wasn't all coming from the senior leadership team or the or HR, it was coming from the stakeholders themselves. So I think it was quite compelling, if your diversity, inclusion, belonging rep is saying, I'm filling this in because I think it's important, because I want to see improvement. That's probably just more compelling than your HR director saying that, or your employee forum rep saying that, or your women's network rep is saying that, so I think in terms of how did we position the language, we gave them quite free rein, really. We're like, just say why you think it's important, why you'll be completing it, and why you think other people should. I mean, we gave them a few questions, but we gave them free rein in terms of their answers, so it sounded authentic and people were compelled by that.
That's great, that authenticity. We've definitely seen that where local managers are kind of given permission in a way to be authentic, use the information you provided, but in their own words. And Sarah's mentioned about whether you could say a little bit more about the role of your engagement champions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. I'll do the role profile if people are interested, so I could even circulate that when we send out the slides. So it's really, I mean, I don't know whether you guys find this, but sometimes if you just say, hey, come and help us and give it some more of your time, that doesn't always work. So we packaged it as a development opportunity, to increase your influencing skills, build your networks, have a demonstrable example of how you've improved the culture, which could look great on your CV. So we kind of you promote it in that way, and then that's how kind of get people coming forward. Having a time estimate as well, it's going to be 1 or 2 hours a week for a certain amount of time. or 2 or 3 hours a month for a certain amount of time. I can't exactly remember what we said, but I think it was that we put a time limit on it, because I think people are then going, okay, I can manage that, and I can talk to my manager about being released for that amount of time, and these are the benefits. So that's how, and going to the EDs and saying, we want to be able to drive change, we want to be able to make this sustainable, and that's going to be helped by you having somebody in your department who can embed your own local action plans and support that, as well as supporting the RCP wide initiatives. So we had with people coming forward. So far so good, but it's still in its infancy, so I don't know, hoping they're going to help us kind of roll out, and that's the plan. They help us embed it and evaluate it once it's concluded.
Thank you. And that would be great to share the role profile. So if you could, Will, if you're happy to, we can share that. And a couple of someone else has mentioned that. So thank you. Last one that's come through actually is around the confidentiality. And lots of colleagues feel that the survey isn't truly anonymous. It is, but obviously it's getting that messaging across. So was there anything you did or said about the confidentiality? Because obviously, as Elaine said, it can influence the completion rate, and you did get an amazing completion rate.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It came through all the time. It was one of the first questions people asked, because people were really concerned about it, and absolutely, I get that. And that was one of the reasons we had our information governance person kind of involved right from the beginning, because people really believe what she says. So it's like, if we can convince her, she would be a great ambassador, and she was satisfied. We set our threshold at 10. So any groups of lower than 10, including demographic groups, we can't cut the data more than that, and we splashed that everywhere, on our FAQs, and we got people to mention it when they were blogging, really push, this is the thing that people are concerned about, we really push that. So it's a legitimate concern, and then there's also guidance around, don't, if you don't name anybody, don't kind of compromise your own anonymity in that way through your responses. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much. If there's any other questions or any other observations, just pop them in the chat and we'll share them with Rachel. Rachel's kindly given an email address and happy to connect as well. So thank you, Rachel, so much. Conscious of time, so we're going to move on a little bit now. I'm just going to take back control of the slides. Okay, there we go. So just moving on to a few trends that we're seeing in the university sector. So obviously we are in a really privileged position to be able to look at trends, see what's happening, and then looking to evolve our platform services to better support the sector. Might be from new tools that we're working on, to looking at new ways of connecting people across the sector. So there's lots of trends, lots of things for us to be excited about. So I just thought I'd highlight a couple of the trends that we're seeing to share with you in the last sort of 10 minutes that we've got. So the first trend being around continuous listening and agile listening. So moving away from annual surveys to more agile cultures. So a powerful shift we are certainly seeing is underway in the HE sector, with lots of universities embracing that strategic, structured listening, using the platform to do so. So rather than relying solely on an engagement survey one-off, we're now seeing that institutions are implementing more of like a multi-layered listening strategy. So they're combining the main survey, the pulse surveys, with other surveys. So moments that matter, joiners, leavers, candidacy check-ins, and then HE specific ones too, like we've been running internal customer satisfaction surveys, postgrad surveys, wellbeing surveys, workload surveys, a huge amount of surveys going through the platform that are very specific to the sector and sector needs. So all that data and evidence being brought together in one central platform, allowing you to look at sentiment, trends, look at actions. So we're definitely seeing this evolution from that previous one-off measurement to much more continuous listening, less centralized reporting and all being on the sort of just the HR team, OD team working things through, to more local level empowerment, and moving from that survey fatigue, which is often an issue in the sector, to that culture of listening and responding. So it's not just about collecting feedback, embedding that listening culture to drive engagement and the
better experiences for staff, and ultimately as well for students alike. So we're definitely seeing that as a trend. Many universities, many on the line today, are using the platform for more than one survey, lots of continuous listening. And then a second trend that we're seeing definitely is that from insight to impact. So really empowering local leaders for real change. And I can't tell you, it's amazing to see so many local leaders using the action planning area. So across the sector, we are seeing a really powerful shift where we're moving beyond just collecting that feedback, it being a tick box exercise. It's much more around using the evidence and the insights to drive change locally. And we're also seeing some key points that I've just listed here, really, around quality actions over quantity. So not having, having one really strong action rather than 10 weaker actions. So rather than trying to fix everything, focusing on that high impact, visible impact that matters to staff. So working with staff on what that action looks like specifically for an area. Having that local ownership, so local leaders taking the lead, being part of the post-survey conversations, using the tools, the dashboards to build that ownership, trust. Absolutely, we're seeing that more and more happening. And looking at, that progress over perfection I've put, so growing recognition that, small wins matter. It's not the big strategic changes. These are small things influencing people's day-to-day lives and what it's like to work in their team, in their area. So I definitely say supporting leaders, managers to focus on the small wins, celebrating the success. And great to hear, Rachel, you talking about, success being celebrated. That's fabulous. And you're keeping that feedback loop alive. And we're seeing lots of leaders being supported to move past, hesitating, having more courageous conversations. Kate mentioned about the one-to-one support that she's been giving to exec directors to help have those potentially difficult conversations and helping with coaching workshops, practical resources to build confidence. It's not easy for everyone to talk about staff survey results. It can be quite daunting. So it's giving that confidence to help with that. And just having the tools, the platform ready to make the shift possible so we can use things like the generative AI, the Prism, we can work efficiently, effectively to get those actions. So, lots that we're seeing in terms of local leaders really sort of supporting that local trend. And it's great to see. We love seeing lots of actions in the dashboard locally, because then when we start to look at impact over time, we can see which actions are having the biggest impact on scores when we're tracking over time. And the third trend, we're definitely seeing a growing appetite for learn and share sessions. So not just as kind of knowledge exchanges, but as a sort of enabler of cross-sector networking and collaboration. So I'm definitely seeing universities looking beyond their own sort of walls, very eager to connect, share. Can I speak to, a university going through this particular pain, this issue, and learning from one another. So we're definitely seeing this as sort of a cornerstone of being more connected, reflective, and an agile sector. Wanting and willing to learn. And with that, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Suzanne to the People Insight team. So Suzanne, some of you may know Suzanne already, brings a wealth of experience from her time as head of engagement at Imperial, where she worked on the Employee Voice and Engagement programme. And here at People Insight, she'll be playing a key role helping us to grow and nurture the HE community. So creating more opportunities for institutions to come together like we're doing today, but in other avenues, in other shapes and forms, to share best practice and build momentum. So I just wanted to hand over to Suzanne for a few minutes just to say a little bit about what we've got planning, what we're planning in the next few months.
Thank you, Jane, and hello everyone, and lovely to see you all from the other side, and look forward to working with you in the future. And as Jane said, I was head of employee engagement at Imperial College London, managing the listening programme for 9,000 staff. So hearing from Rachel, I absolutely sort of resonate with all of the sort of pain points that you mentioned. So firstly, as well as these online webinars, highlighting the brilliant case studies. We're also going to be doing more of the in-person events that Jane mentioned on the back of the success of the one at Imperial, where there is that kind of appetite to get back together in the room again and share all that good practice and collaborate. Secondly, I'm going to be setting up an online Teams community. We often get questions from universities, and Jane and the team are really good at putting other people in touch with each other. But, you know, sort of when new legislation comes out around things like sexual harassment or the socio-economic questions, you know, we get those questions, should we include them in our survey? So this Teams community is going to be that kind of place where we can chat about these things with each other. We'll obviously facilitate it, but you'll be able to talk to colleagues much quicker on that team site. So we'll be looking for volunteers if anyone wants to come forward. I'm going to set up an initial pilot group. And thirdly, I'm going to be launching a monthly HE community newsletter. So again, sharing ideas and really good news stories, but also sort of highlighting the work that People Insight are doing and behind the lens, who we are, what are the trends, what's the new tech that's being launched. So this is going to be specifically for the HE community. So very excited about the work ahead, and also working with the fabulous team at People Insight and getting to know the wider HE community as well.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to have you on board. Yeah, so just to finish off, really. So before we wrap up, as we come to the end of the session, I'd like to leave you with sort of 2 final thoughts, really. So firstly, many of you all know that we partner with Eden People and Planet, a not-for-profit organisation committed to restoring landscapes, fighting deforestation. So as a small gesture of appreciation for your time today, energy, I know an hour out your day is a huge amount of time and engagement. We will be planting a tree for every attendee on the webinar, so thank you very much. It's our way of saying thank you to you. And lastly, you know, let's keep the conversation going. So before we wrap up, just wanted to leave you with the final invitation. We're always keen to hear from you, whether it's ideas, emerging trends, challenges you're facing. We're here to collaborate with the sector, with each institution and overall as well, to ultimately, you know, support organisational performance. So if today has sparked your interest in deeper collaboration, we'd love to hear from you about joining our HE community pilot. So we're just going to do it for limited spaces at the moment as we pilot the approach, but if you were interested, it's not going to be a huge time commitment at all. I know everyone's super busy. Hopefully it's going to support you with questions that you might have coming up and you want to hear from the wider sector quickly, efficiently. Let us know. Do email Suzanne or myself and let us know if you're interested, and we'll start to set that up. So thank you so much for joining us today. We will send the slides out and the webinar after, and I can see already really efficient. Thank you so much again to Rachel for your session, for going through the details of your journey, and also for, you know, sharing that engagement champion profile. We'll make sure that we send that round to everyone as well. So thank you. Any final thoughts, observations, please pop it in the chat. Other than that, you know, wishing you a lovely afternoon and hopefully speak to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.